Where we really want to focus is kind of the heart of adoption and understanding adoption, both in the earthly sense and in the spiritual sense, in that we are adopted into the kingdom of heaven. Hello, good to be with you all today. Denise has asked us, I'm Abby Francis and Lise Strobel, to talk to you a little bit today about something that we are both very passionate about, which is adoption. An adoption as a choice rather than abortion. So we have some statistics that Lise, who knows a great deal about this topic, wants to share that are pretty impactful about this.
Well, previously I was a clinic service director of two life-affirming clinics right next door to Planned Parenthood. And just really as I came on board, found out the reality of the numbers and really was literally shocked that in unintended pregnancies, the percentage of people that choose adoption is about 2%. And so it is a very low statistic. And the people that choose abortion is approximately anywhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 48%, just depending on the demographic. And so both of us have talked about it. We both believe that there are even some small things that that could be done by the church to really help impact those numbers. And so we wanted to share just a couple of ideas.
Yeah, exactly. That number is really staggering. I think there were so many angles we could take here and a lot of things we could say about how the church can love single mothers well and how we can, create a shame-free environment and things like that. And there's many avenues that we talked about going and so many things that we would love to talk about. But I think since we have limited time, where we really want to focus is kind of the heart of adoption and understanding adoption, both in the earthly sense and in the spiritual sense, in that we are adopted into the kingdom of heaven. And so for me, I am adopted. And so I have had people say to me that did not know that I was adopted because I look a good deal like my adopted mother. And so people just, they don't assume that you're adopted. And so they would say things to me like, oh, I don't ever think I could adopt because I just don't think that I could love a kid that's not my own. And I'm like, oh, interesting take, but people don't know, people don't understand. And so I try to come from a place of let me teach you about that rather than being offended about it, because I think people just don't have a complete understanding. So for me to say I couldn't love a child that's not my own is just showing me that they don't understand what adoption actually is, because I am my mom's own child. That to me there is no difference. And what was so striking to me is that if we're misunderstanding earthly adoption in that way, if we're thinking of it as that's a less than child, that's not a full child, they're not actually yours, then how is that impacting your faith? Because if you believe that you are adopted by God, but you're not really his, how are you really living? Are you really living in the fullness of everything that God has given us? Do you believe that you're actually a co-heir with Christ? Or do you believe that you're sort of this thing on the side that he's like, I guess, And so that's really powerful, because if you live your life in abundance and you live your life as a true co-heir that has been gifted every single spiritual blessing and gift, that changes everything for you, right? And that's so powerful. And so to teach and educate on just even how beautiful earthly adoption is, I think can impact your spiritual life, and then vice versa. So I'll let you kind of speak to the other side of that.
Well, I think something that was really significant for me is, as I explored, I'm actually writing a book on I have two adoption stories that I want to expound on, and so that will be coming out in the next 6 months. I think it's going to be called Tell Me the Story of My Adoption Again. And the idea behind it really is that as I began to explore the idea of adoption from a heavenly perspective and how deep and wide the love of God went to lay down his own life in the form of his son for me, what kind of father does that? And as the more I thought about it, the more it was somebody who longed for me, planned for me, had a dream for me, just like an earthly couple would adopt someone and longingly write out the story of why they're fit parents, and have this long wait and this really cry in their heart to have a complete family with this child, and all these plans and thoughts that were in the parents' hearts. And as I began to explore that more, I realized what I'm telling myself over and over again to understand even in a greater way the love of a father, which I didn't really have in my life. I began to see the love of my own my Godfather. And so understanding the true nature of God and how deep and wide his love went was really the heart of the gospel. And so it's just another way of framing the gospel, but I think it goes to a deep place in us of a need to be planned for and a need to be significant, a need to matter and have a place in this world that was planned and dreamed of and thought of, and a path ahead, well-oiled plan that was thought and dreamed up and made empowered. And so another thing that I did find was very incredible before I took on that role as the clinic director, I actually worked in the schools teaching a youth risk reduction program. And one of the things we talked about is in an unplanned pregnancy, what would they choose? And what they said was it was the most evil choice to choose adoption because you were throwing your child away. So understanding, but that was a mass understanding. And based on what she had heard too, we both knew that there had to be something different that we could be hearing from the church, from the pastor, that would not only resolve some of the issues, the lies and the enemy's lies against earthly adoption, but the enemy's lies against our own heart. And as a young girl, hearing those over and over and over again, what would happen to a child that heard that from early age on up in the church, that the gospel was God's story of adoption for us, of that great planning and that great love.
And it's a sacrifice. And that's why it's so sad to me to hear that people, because I do know that people consider it the worst option. And how could a mother give up her child? And you say, well, God literally gave up his son for us because there was a greater plan. He gave his son because there was something on the other side of that was beautiful. That he was redeeming us, right? And for her, well, we didn't say that yet, but this is my birth mother. And she gave me away, and to me that is the most beautiful thing she could have done for me, because that was a sacrifice, because she cared more about me than she did herself, and God cared more about us than he did to save his own son. And so I think it's actually just a beautiful, beautiful redemptive picture. And the more we can teach that on both sides of it, right? Earthly adoption is beautiful and we are adopted into the heavenly kingdom, all of that, then we can start to see it in the light that it should be, and that it's not something that you vilify someone for, that it's really just a beautiful story of redemption. So,
and one thing we have heard frequently is just seeing her is seeing a picture of what God has planned for us, which is a beautiful life. When a mistake happens and something unexpected, we can embrace people in love, show them the love of God, the compassion of the Father, and watch a life come into this world that he destined and he ordained, and isn't just a choice. And so I believe that we can make a huge impact if we'll just give place to that thought of how much we are loved and adopted into God's family, and we can show the love of the Father that way to one another.
Amen.
Amen.